Okay, just a couple more minutes. We will get started. This is for Congregants Hour. 3 incredible members of our congregation who will be featured. Okay, everybody come forward. Make this a little intimate soiree, a little bit intimate gathering. We're going to be right about there. Where's my gang? Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Where's my... All right, good afternoon, everybody. Come on in. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Stu Needle. Been here member for many years. Currently involved with Brotherhood. Those of us that are bringing Brotherhood into existence, very proud of that. I've been in social action. I've been the technology chair, many roles for the last many years. I'm happy to be here and have taken on the challenge and the joy of creating Congregants Hour for the second year. I want to welcome, where is she? I saw her. Melissa Emily was over there. Melissa brought this to the synagogue last year, and it was delightful and amazing and an incredible success. We want to duplicate it. There's one of our speakers there, and there's one from last year, so they're back. We want to introduce you to, for those that don't know, we have 3 members that we're featuring who have equally interesting and amazing stories. We want you to hear them. We want you to hear the stories. So we're going to start off. There's Brad there. We're going to sandwich Brad in between the 2 ladies. We're going to make him a Brad sandwich. So a Bradwich. So we'll start. We'll start with Pat. Pat's going to begin. Her complete bio is in the Yom Kippur bulletin, the handout. I would just tell you that she is immersed in this synagogue and has been for the entire time I've been here, and you heard Mark mention before, 40 years of them being here. So I'll say no more and introduce you to Pat Wolkow.
Hi. When Stu asked me to do this, I said, people already know me. What do you mean I got to? And he said, no, but they don't know your story. So a lot of you do know me, and of course my bio even gave you more information that maybe you didn't know. I didn't know where to start, so I'm going to let you tell me where to start. So these are some things I'm prepared to talk about. So pick one. What do you need to know that you don't already know? Being First Lady. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty fun. I talked to Mark just yesterday. I said, were you president for any other things than the temple and the Board of Education? Well, I was a leader here. I was a chair here. I'm like, no, those weren't president. I'll just talk about the two. So my first opportunity to be First Lady was when Mark decided to run for president of the Board of Education. And he did ask me and our daughters what we thought about that, because we're the fallout in the behind the lines when he's up on the board making decisions about Karen's education and Diane's education and my job. So we didn't have to think long about it because we know how level-headed Mark was, and we said, sure, what do we have to do? He said, just be yourself. I said, okay. So I was just being myself, and being a teacher in a school, the principal at the time could not believe that I could just be myself. She would remind me constantly, you're the president's wife. You're the president's wife, you can't do that. And to show her, to convince her that I'm okay with who I am, Mark and I had went to Hawaii for, I think that was for our anniversary. And the anniversary. And on the cruise through the islands, they had a woman teaching us how to make all different types of Hawaiian leis. And so on the way back, I had lots of time. So I made these ribbon leis, which some of you probably have one that I've made, for all my staff at my school. And they were red and white. Those were our school colors. And at our very first teacher meeting, I went in and I walked around and said, I have something very special for all of you. First of all, I want to announce that I have 2 implants. And they're like, what? I go, yeah, one's here and one's here. Brand new, they're great. If you ever need to replace teeth, the implants are great, and I give you a great dentist to do that. And the principal's back there like, oh my God. And I said, and I brought you gifts. And I give everybody a lei. I said, I made these for you in Hawaii. Now you can't say you haven't been laid. And then she came up to me and said, do you know you're the president's wife? I said, yes, and he's fine with this. Those were the funny things. And the tough part about being First Lady in that position was, though, that I was looking to branch out and take another position. I wanted to move on to teaching middle school science. That was my love. And they wouldn't let me go anywhere else. It wasn't like I had a fair shake, and I really thought it was because, and it may be and it may not be, maybe my own idea, because every interview I went on, are you related to Mark Wolkow? Yes. I promise you won't breathe down your neck. I promise not to tell stories. And I never got the job. I was so disappointed. And I told my principal at the time, I said, I'm going on these interviews. I said, if I get the interview, I'm teaching for 5 more years. If not, I'm giving my 2 years notice because, that was the love that I had, and I had the energy to do that and the gumption to do that. I said, otherwise, I'll give you 2 more years and then I'm moving out. So, and that's ended up what happened. But that was probably, my first role as First Lady, and how I pretty much handled that. But everything else was kind of like I was a tag-along. I'd go to different events that might involve where he's in the community. It had nothing to do with the board, but of course everyone knows him as the board president. I'm the wife. Eventually I just quit hanging around him. I just went and made my own friends and let him do his thing. So quite different than probably what you think a First Lady, officially like in the White House would do. So you have a question already? Okay, 1 second. My other First Lady job is, of course, here. And yes. So coming here and being First Lady twice, presently and several years ago. And again, constantly moving around, trying to be on my best behavior because my husband's the president. And after a while, everybody knew me, and they knew, that I could be myself and be relaxed and not have to worry about, if they had a problem, they would just go to Mark anyway, so not a problem. But only a few people would come to me and say, "You sleep with the president. Can you get this to work?" And I'm like, "I'll send them subliminal messages, sure." And but it was easy to be first lady, and it was a privilege to be first lady. Okay, you said Jewish history. Okay, so my Jewish history is limited, at least on paper, as far as I know. I have never done the genealogy thing or the whatever to find out where my culture is. And I've found a lot of people who've done that and say, "Gee, I have some Jewish heritage." Well, I've never done it, but I bet you I'm more Jewish than I think I am. I was not born in the Jewish faith, but my roots are from Eastern Europe, and at least on my dad's side, and my mother's side is from Germany. So, I mean, what are the chances? Pretty good, huh? I was born and raised Catholic in Maryland my whole life. And I knew nothing about Judaism. I didn't even know who Jews were until I was a teenager working in a dry cleaner. And this guy came in with a black coat and a hat and these little curls down the side. And I'm like, what the heck? It's not Halloween. I mean, I had no idea. I didn't learn about Judaism in school. And, I'm a teenager. I'm in high school. And a friend says, he always came to get his shoes fixed. And I said, oh. And my mother said, he's Jewish. He's an Orthodox Jewish person, so he's very religious. So, I had respect for him. But that's all I knew about Jewish people. And it wasn't until I had gone, my mother always wanted me to go to modeling school. I was, as you read I'm the only girl, and my mother was very busy raising us by herself. So she made a lot of my clothes, but she didn't teach me how to do my hair or do my makeup or how to act like a lady. In fact, so she said, gave me a gift, and she said, I want you to go to finishing school so that you know how to be a pretty young lady. I mean, you already are pretty, but, learn what you need to know. I said, okay. So I went to Barbizon Modeling School in Towson. And the woman interviewed me, and she says, oh, my gosh, you just have brothers, don't you? I'm like, I just know that. She said, just tell by the way you walk. So I had to learn to walk. I could talk okay. And, it was an eye-opening experience. But, I went through and I learned how to coordinate clothes, and I learned how to put on makeup and the whole thing. And I'm okay, now can I model? And so I got my first modeling job. It was working at the Civic Center at the auto show, the car show, and it was great. I met James Brolin, the actor, and Peter Lupus, who was on Mission Impossible. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I got to meet all these famous people. And one of the owners of Barbizon at the time, that was the one and only job I had for modeling with them. I had a nice interview. I have to bring those pictures in. I'll show you my little silver hot pants, but and red satin blouse. It was pretty fun. But anyway, the owner of the company was Jewish, of Barbizon, our part owner. And they arranged me another job working in Baltimore City at the Morris Mechanic Theater building in the restaurant, the Charcoal Hearth that was there at the time, coordinating dinner theater packages for the theater. So it was pretty cool. But then Baltimore died. I mean, I was there one season, and Baltimore died. The theater closed. And I'm like, oh, great, now what do I do? And on my spare time, when I wasn't busy doing theater things, I would help the secretary do things for the restaurant and whatever. And she was very nice. She was the wife of the guy who owned owned Barbizon. So, in fact, they own Robinson's Bridal in Pikesville. Or we used to be there. I don't know if it's there anymore. But anyway, I got to know her. Well, her back went out, and she had to have surgery. And she said, do you think you can stay on and help Joel with the office? And I go, sure. Well, Joel was useless to me because he was manager of the restaurant and running around. So I would just pull out the files and teach myself what to do and so on and so forth. And I did a pretty good job. I did such a good job that when the restaurant closed, he got me a job at Martin's Caterer. And then I got to meet Marty Resnick, who was a very wonderful man. May his life be for a blessing. He just passed this summer. And a slew of Jews. I was in a sea there. I was like, wow, I didn't know any Jewish people hardly. Now I know all these people. And I became very good friends with a Jewish woman and who lived in my community at the time. And so I worked there for a few years, and then things there weren't going so well. So I left, and on my way home, I stopped into Maryland Cup Corporation, which is also a Jewish-owned company that I didn't know at the time. So here I am. I'm just like drawn to these Jewish people every time you turn around. And I walked in and I said, I'm looking for a job. Can I fill out an application? Are you hiring anybody? I don't think so, but here, fill out an application. And they took it back, and she said, I got a call when I got home. Can you come back tomorrow? We have a job in the purchasing department, which is what I had done at Martin's. So I got the job. I come in. My boss is Jewish. 2 of the people that I work with in my office are Jewish. I'm surrounded by these Jewish people. I learned all about the company and how they grew from ice cream cups. And it was amazing. And one of the Jewish ladies in my group, she was older, she was wonderful, her name was Eva, and she said, she'd always ask me all these questions about Christmas and whatever, Christian questions. And so I started asking her about Jewish things, or she would literally just spell them out to me. Yeah, here's what we do. I go, okay. And I grew to adore her, and she was such a charmer. And I learned a lot working in that community, and it wasn't long, a few years after that, Mark Wolkow came to work there, not in my department, another department. And, I met him, but his job directly was related to my job because he would schedule things to be made in the plant, which I ordered packaging materials for, not just him, but a lot of people. But he was always hanging around. And then it was around Thanksgiving, and he says, what do you do for Thanksgiving? And I go, this, that, what are you doing? And my cousin's coming, I'm going to learn how to play guitar. Oh, I know how to play guitar. I could teach you a few things. Well, that was it. We started learning to play the guitar, and when we go on a date, but we never talked about it at work because it seemed like every time somebody was involved with somebody there, out the window it went. I mean, they would make a mess of it. So we kept it secret for years. Not too many years, but for a long time, and only 2 people in the whole company knew. My immediate supervisor was the baseball coach for the team, the Sweetheart Cup team, and Mark was on the team as well as several other handsome guys. But and I was, certainly looking for somebody else, and Mark was the only one that really gave me lots of attention. And so we dated a few times, and he invited me to go skiing the winter of '83. Big storm. In fact, it was my mother's 60th birthday of blessed memory, and 50th birthday, whatever. And we had a surprise party for her. He was helping me with all that and everything. It snowed so much we had to cancel that. But it didn't cancel our ski trip. So Mark and one of the other guys from his office and I went up to Ski Liberty, and that runs into the Stitches thing over there. But I had a skiing accident that just messed up my knee big time. And so Mark and the other guy, who wasn't even eligible, were fighting over who was going to take me home, who was going to come back and stay with, because we all want car. I'll come back. And I had already been dating Mark, but he didn't know that. So I said, you've got to talk to Stu. His name was Stu. He can't come back here. He's married. He says, okay, don't worry, I'll figure it out. So Mark came back and stayed with me because I was in real pain. In fact, the next day I couldn't even walk. Felt like my leg was falling off. My knee was falling off. And sure enough, I ended up having ligament surgery and fixing it up. And when I was in the hospital, I'm laying there, and a social worker comes by and talking about, we're going to release you. Do you have a place to stay? And I go, yeah. Tell me about it. Does it have any steps? I go, yeah, it's a apartment on the 3rd floor, no elevator, and I have a dog. She said, oh no, you can't go. Do you have any family to stay with? I said, my mother, but she lives like 30 miles from my work, and if I can't drive, it was my right leg. And she said, well, you have to, we can't release you until we know that you can take care of yourself. So I said, okay. And tears are coming down out of my eyes, and Mark walks in. What's the matter? It's like, I don't know where I'm going to go. I'm not going to know what to do. So Mark had a cute little house right a block from work, pretty much, and in Owings Mills, and said, I have an extra bedroom, and I have a big yard for the dog. No problem, come. So he stayed and helped me pack up some things and move over to there. And, well, you know, it just blossomed. And we played the charade for a little while longer because, you know, we didn't want the people at work to meddle with us and mess us up. In fact, they didn't know that we even decided to get married until the day we were married. And we surprised them at the Hilton in Pikesville and said, there's a big party going on. You know, we had these attitude adjustment meetings for the company from time to time. And they would announce them. We never knew who was in charge of it, so we spread the gossip that there was an attitude adjustment meeting. And after our wedding and our little family reception, we went there and we had the DJ announce us as, and here come the new couple. You know, and our family was there, and we had our first dance, and everyone was like, Marilyn Cuppers are all, the mouths are all hanging open. What? And only 2 people knew, so it was pretty great. Well, my boss knew because I went in the next day. I said, I have to have tomorrow off. He says, why? And he was always afraid that someone was going to quit. He says, you're not quitting, are you? I go, no, but I'm getting married tomorrow. Oh, okay. I said, who are you getting married to? I said, I can't tell you. You'll find out. Well, he didn't come, but he found out anyway. So anyway, that started our relationship. And of course, we had talked about before we got married, you know, I said, I definitely want to have children. Oh, yeah, me too. But, you know, how are we going to, we got to raise our children. And I don't know whether it was our own idea or your parents or whatever. Like, you got to figure out before you decide this how you're going to raise your children. And I said, well, my experience growing up as a Catholic child was not pleasant. Only because, really, there were certainly a lot of good things about it, and certainly a basis for my way of living as far as being a real, you know, God-loving person, of course, and a caring person, a warm person. But the traditions of the religion just did not agree with me at all. And I had terrible dreams about the way I saw some kids treated because they did believe in, you know, in punishment. And they kind of punished my mom because they got divorced and they wouldn't let her come into the church. So she could never come to church with us. It was very disheartening. She would just dump us off and we're like, aren't you coming? And it was hard. And so I just didn't want that for my children and have to explain that to them. And so they said, well, why don't you go talk to some ministers and rabbis? So I did. Mark and I, we talked to a rabbi in Pikesville, and we talked to a minister. It wasn't till we saw a minister, I believe, and said, you got to choose something. Just choose something. When they get older, they can make up their own minds. They'll have a basis to make their decision, and you will, and you know, you'll embrace whatever they decide because you've given them a background. So that's what we decided. And they came here. I had 2 lovely daughters, and we brought them here, and everybody loved them, just like we all love the kids running around in the sanctuary. But they went to the preschool here, and it was in the preschool. I can thank Marian Euro for her wonderful, wonderful guidance and answered all my questions about how can I do this, how can I do that. And then they started religious school, and I'm learning Hebrew right with them, and I'm helping them learn about the holidays. And I did more holiday stuff with them than Mark ever did when he was a kid. And I said, you know, I think I'm meant to be Jewish. I really do. And so I came, I went to the rabbi who was here at the time, Rabbi Block, and I said, I would really like to become Jewish. Well, we have this class. You can take this class. It was a bar mitzvah class for adults. But you'll get enough information. So I went to those classes, and then I had my own conversion classes with another girl named Pat, too. I never saw her again. But, and we went through the whole thing, and I said, Rabbi, how much longer do I have to do all of this? And he said, well, it sounds like to me you're kind of ready. So, and I was telling him about my favorite holidays and different things like that, and whatever, we talked. And so he said, it sounds like you're ready. So I had my conversion ceremony, and it's all current history from there. I've never, regretted. Why would I regret it? I've always found it home. I always found it comfortable. I always found I really do think my history back there was really more Jewish than there was anything else, and I was b'sheret, meant to be here. So.
We've got about 1 more minute, and then we'll take some questions. Okay. Just wrap it up, and then we'll see who's out.
That's my Jewish history. Oh, and then I joined I was in the bat mitzvah class already. So Carol Gast and B. Sadowski and I studied together. Oh, what a trio we were. We were so much fun. Of course, we practiced at the Gast house. We had a good time. Poor Carol, her accent, and Ziggy would all the time tell her, "That's not how you say it. That's not the right way," and we would die. And but it was a lot of fun, and we are such great sisters. Carol and I still today, we call each other our bat mitzvah sisters, and we had our bat mitzvah here from that class, and loved to tell the story of that. But it was and my biggest hurdle, I guess, through that whole process was my mom. She broke down at one time crying, and she said, "How can you just turn your back on your faith?" And I said, I still believe in God, up to the end of the First Testament. After that, it's kind of different. And I said, how can you feel that way after the way you've been treated all this time? And she said, she just kind of swallowed it for a while. And then the questions started coming. The ladies at work want to know, what do you do at a funeral? The ladies at work were talking the other day, and they wanted to know what you do. I knew she wanted all the questions. It was so it's just like a parent with a child, the opposite, there's always somebody else's question, but it's really yours. And she come to embrace it well. In fact, she bought my talit for me, and she was here for my ceremony, and she was here for, not here for the girls' bat mitzvah, she was happy for them, but she came to services pretty regularly and was very supportive. And she said, "So what are you going to do at Christmas time?" I said, "Mom," because she made ornaments for all the grandchildren. So I'm going to put up some garland in the hallway because it's evergreens, and the kids can hang their ornaments there. And we will go and help our friends decorate their trees. Diana was fine with it because she was real young. Not Karen. The first year, "Where's that tree?" "We're going to go decorate Miss Debbie's tree." "Okay, but where's our tree?" She had a tough time with it, and but I guess she come to grips with it. But she's still here with us.
All right. Any quick 1 or 2 questions, and then we're gonna move on to our next featured. Anybody? Any other question? I heard there was one. Anybody else?
Thank you, Pat.
You're
That was
welcome.
great. Thank you so much, Pat. And you got a sign string there. You can souvenir, right? Stay tuned for part 2. All right. So, adding to the mix of this thing, and one of the relationships I hadn't even thought of, Pat and Ann taught. You guys call it 7th grade, right? For how many years? So, I mean, there's just this mixture of seniority. And that's not was my criteria. My criteria was knowing people that I knew, people that I've known since I've been here. So now I'm going to bring up Brad, Dr. Brad Cogan. A lot of you know, some of you may not, but we're gonna make sure that in the next 20 minutes or so you do know him much better than you do now. All right, so
I just before you, anything you think you know about me, the truth is worse.
So Brad asked me to. We like shtick, And he wanted me to do this as an interview, and I said I'd be honored. My mission was to make myself as transparent as possible, but I love this, so I'm more than happy to do that. And we're going to do this as an interview because I want to know a lot about Brad, and I'm hoping everybody else wants to know a lot. So here we go. One thing I'm missing, very important. It helps. Give me 1 second to be old. All right. So question number one, dear Dr. Cogan. You grew up on Long Island, New York. I'd like you to tell us about your parents and the level of Jewish observation for your family.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Long Island is the largest island in the United States. It's 120 miles long. People sort of underestimate how big it is. There's a lot of Jews on Long Island. And a lot of those Jews at the time of my growing up were Dodgers fans. Now, because a lot of them emigrated from Brooklyn, as did my parents. My father came from Russia first, or Ukraine, really. And the Dodgers had already moved out to Los Angeles. It didn't make a big difference because they had a pitcher named Sandy Koufax. And they played the World Series against Sandy Koufax, and the world was shocked because he struck out 17 Yankees, including the mighty Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. But we didn't always know what the game was going on Yom Kippur because, well, we weren't listening. But apparently someone in the choir found out, passed it on to the Chazan, and the Chazan announced the score. Just so it could be relaxed about our praying. The Knicks were very popular too. About the time I got in college, they were a New York thing. They started it for a lot of street basketball. You know, back in the day, Jews were big enough to play pro basketball. Religiously, it was some contradictions. My father didn't have much religious training growing up. My mother more so. The house was kosher. We would go out to restaurants and only eat things that could be kosher, like eggplant parmesan. That was the big thing. Yeah, it was very good. And I'm not sure what my father did when he was out of the house, but you know, he was a good dad. They took real good care of us. They sent me to yeshiva for kindergarten through 6th grade, and my brother got out a little early, well, about a little later, but he knew he wanted to go to medical school, so they made sure he got to a good high school where we lived. It was a very good school, and he had the requisites ready for that.
I love it. Perfect segue. We talked, this was kind of like our bonding piece, but...
Not really.
Okay. Anything stand out to you in particular about your memories about your bar mitzvah? What was special about your bar mitzvah?
It was very traumatic.
Beyond that.
Nina, was yours stressful? Your bar? Well, this wasn't about you, but I was late, and so was Noah, and so was Josh. This is many conversations, it says in the thing. But we did came, and that was the best bas mitzvah I was ever at. And yeah, it was because it was a Sukkot theme, and everybody much got into it. And it was a real pleasure to have that. And a lot of the relatives came down to be there because we did it on a non-Shabbat time, and it was good to do. My bar mitzvah was, I think like you, the Chazan made a record of everything I had to do, right? You had that
physical
too.
record.
So it was a recording, and I had to learn that recording by rote. And I didn't really learn how to read Torah so much until Noah was doing it. And I said, well, I better catch up to him. And he was reading Torah, and he read Yonah. He was very good with that. And after he left here to go to college, I said, well, I'll try it, you know. And they've been letting me get away with it for a bunch of years, but he's here now to, you know, set it straight.
All right. We could go on about the bar mitzvah all day because we had a lot to talk about. You lived in several different areas of the country after graduating from college. Where have you lived, and how did your location impact your Jewish life, or vice versa? 30 seconds. No, just kidding.
30 seconds. So I started high school in Long Island, went up to Colgate University in upstate New York. It's sort of in the crotch between Syracuse and Utica. But the school is nice. That area was depressed, though. It was quite depressed. And so then I went to Boston University for medical school. And so I'm going to describe for you the downward spiral of schizophrenia. So I went from Colgate to Boston U, then down to South Carolina, because I wanted to get out of the cold. South Carolina was fun. And there's old established Jewish congregations. Am I what? Too close? Old established Jewish congregations in all these older cities. And very similar, well, I started out, this one guy, in the dry goods business. Just like my father was in the dry goods business to a certain extent. And then I moved from there to Houston, Texas. And the Jews there, the wealthy ones, scrap business, just like Baltimore. So we have these things we tend to be able to do to survive and thrive. And so, but that was enough south. So, and I came back, and I wanted to live below the Mason-Dixon line, because I didn't want it too Yankee, and I didn't want it too rebel. I wanted to live on the Chesapeake Bay. I liked sailing, and which I took up as a youth in New York. And so I met Ann. Oh my! Oh, you'll talk to us later, right? You'll straighten it out. You straighten it out, Ann. I met Ann.
He's your opening
here.
act, Ann. It's good.
We were both working at Hartford Memorial Hospital. She was the lab tech of the year, and so I really wanted to meet her. I want to forget Mobile. I mean, okay. I'll just tell you, my brother, a wise man, said, you're going to live in Mobile, there's going to be a hurricane right away, and there'll be a KKK event while you're there. And he was correct. Wow. He was correct. It was kind of creepy, kind of a creepy place to live. And when I had to get my state license approval, I had to go up to the Capitol, Montgomery, I think. I don't know. Yeah, it was Montgomery. And I had to there was another person in the radiology department there, and she had to go too. Can you drive her? I'll drive her. And I said, okay. Her name was Samuel. Sit in the front. No, I can't. Why can't you? It has to look like I'm your maid, that you are not an equivalent of me, or we might have some kind of relationship. It has to look like I'm your maid. And I said, no, you're kidding. She said, no.
What year?
Let me do the numbers. Well, I think it was 1989. No. Oh, no.
84.
1984. Okay. Yeah.
All right, perfect segue.
And there was a lynching. There was a Klan lynching of someone in Mobile while I was there.
All right, so perfect segue along the timeline. You moved to Habit of Grace and this beloved synagogue in 1984. How did this congregation compare to others you belonged to?
Well, it was interesting because it was in transition. I got here, there were a lot of adults who came to work here in the Army during World War II, and they were mostly conservative people. There were a couple of people who were a little more conservative, a couple of people a little more Reform, but it was mostly conservative. We had a conservative sitter, we had a conservative rabbi, and but over the years, it changed, and you had to adapt to it. You have to adapt to what it is, and I think I've adapted pretty well. But it's fascinating to see the people moving in, the newer people, and everybody here. I pretty much know everybody sitting here, and you're all great. You're all great people.
All right, last question. Gonna go retrospective. Looking back, what's the most important thing, the thing you value in your Jewish life?
Oh, Anne and the kids.
Oh, I didn't tell him this.
And the kids who aren't here. I have an older son, Joshua, and he went to Hebrew school here, and he was kind of a wild kid, but he went to John Carroll for college, and he went to high school, and he went to University of Maryland. And he kind of was like, I don't want to go there. I said, you're not much of a student. You're very smart, but you're not a student. You're going to go to Maryland. I'm not going to pay $50,000 for you to go to Boston University. It'd be a waste. So I said, go there, prove how smart you are. He did. Got Phi Beta Kappa, Golden Key, and they wanted him to stay there to do anthropology, but he had his own road, and he wanted to travel it. He made his lifelong friends there. I just went on a trip with him. It's called the Journeymen, and he has these guys that they're all different walks of life. They just were missing something. They wanted to have guys they could be friends with who weren't drinking all the time. That was a lot of it. He wanted to have friends. They could be very present for each other. So I go there, and everybody's hugging each other, and they're having a great time. But he showed me a lot. That was great. I went with him. I was very pleased to be invited or nagged into it. But we was in Montana. We went to Bozeman. We were fly fishing, camping out, and it was a great time. But my kids, Nina's amazing, Noah's amazing, and everybody knows how amazing Ann is. But any questions for me?
Took the words out of my mouth. Any questions for Brad? Yeah.
I happen to know that your mother was a Hebrew school principal.
Yes,
Your mom was a Hebrew school principal, and your mom of blessed memory. And she happened to know one of the rabbis who was here, so I wanted you to tell
Rabbi Jacobs was a student of hers in Hebrew high school, some level Hebrew where she was in charge. And he was okay here, and I ended up butting heads with him about something. And I told my mother, says, oh, you can't do that. It's the rabbi. I said, Mom, I can't help this situation. It's not working. It's not working out. She forgave me. She really forgave me, and I appreciated that. Thanks for bringing up that painful memory.
It's the Ann and Brad show, ladies and gentlemen. Anything else? Anything else for Dr. Cogan, Brad? Former president. When were you president of the synagogue?
Twice.
Really?
Yeah, each time when we were running out of rabbis at Chazanim, and I had to make sure that we would have a rabbi and someone who could lead the prayers. So I got it worked out for Noah, and when Nina's time came, got it done again, and I can rest now.
I remember it was early when, just after I met Linda and came here, you were like the next president. It was like very shortly after. Yeah. And I remember driving you crazy, and it was a pleasure.
You did. You settled down. I'm pleased. I'm pleased.
I pretend. Anything else? Any parting words?
Anybody else want to ask something?
Going once? Okay. Oh.
What? Kalina.
Kalina.
My favorite color?
Yeah. I want to know you as a person.
Blue. I like blue. I had a blue car. I have a blue boat. And I wear blue eyeliner.
And she also has a question for you.
Who's she? Ah, may actually, your name is pronounced Trouble.
I have a question in the wings.
I want to make a comment. You mentioned that there were a lot of scrap metal business owners on Long Island. That's a surprise to me. That's a shock.
It wasn't Long Island, it was in the South.
The South, okay.
In Houston and Baltimore, and all the southern ports, Savannah, like that.
There must be a chain of Jewish businesses all around
Yes.
the country doing that.
Yeah, they're all.
But I wanted to ask you about your dad. You said he came from Ukraine.
Yes.
Can you tell more about the age he came to the U.S. at? And
He was 12,
okay,
and he spoke no English, and so his father had come earlier and set up a business, but the father died shortly after my father and his mother came. He had a brother with him and a sister, and the brother was a small guy, and he took up prize fighting. And he was a boxer in like the low weight classes, and his nose got broken too many times. He was bleeding, so he had to stop doing that. And he was always a little dopey from it. I don't mean it, you know. He was confused a lot. And he had another brother who was a stepbrother after his mother remarried into what was called the Schwartzberg family. So there were a lot of Schwartzberg brothers. And there was one particular brother, his name was Isidore. And my father and his mother didn't live too far from where they were. And she sent my father over to get a cup of sugar. And a young girl answered the door, and it turned out it was her birthday. And he didn't have a present for her. But she opened the door, and he walked in and grabbed her and kissed her. That was my mother. Miriam.
Nice.
True story.
Yeah. All right.
As far as when am I going to
Retire. Yeah.
from making silly jokes? From making
Riding that train or whatever.
Oh, I haven't. Well, I'm part-time now, so I only go in once or twice a week. So that's pretty good. And everything can be remote now. Anything else?
Brad's
Thank you.
looking for the switch. He wants to turn the mic
Thank you
off
for your
now.
time.
Thank you, Brad. Right, last but not least, the other, and I would think the better half of the Cogan clan, of the elder clan, and is, like you heard me say before, a many-year teacher. How many years did I hear? 5 years? 5 years, 7th grade, not 7 years, 5th grade. Rabbi liaison committee. She's done a lot for this synagogue, as is every one of these other panelists. I'm eager to hear. By the way, one more mention. Vadim spoke before. Vadim was one of our speakers last year, along with Lisa Fulner. So, love having you guys back. And with that, our featured guest, one of the closing act, ladies and gentlemen, Ann Cogan.
I too want to thank Melissa Immel for kind of persevering and trying to do this. And I also want to just say to Vadim and Lisa, good on you, because I had no idea how intimidating this was going to be. And all these faces are very friendly, but it's still, it's very hard to make yourself vulnerable and put yourself out there. And so I appreciate everything that you said last year. I took so much away. So if you had told me 40 years ago that I would be a Jewish person, I would have said that is really not possible. Because up until my 20s, I had never been to a synagogue. I had never been to a Jewish home. I'd never had a Jewish friend. And I had never even met a Jewish person, as far as I knew. When my parents met each other back in the 1950s, my mom and dad were teenagers, and they were active members of their local CYO, which was Catholic Youth Organization. My mother had considered becoming a nun at one point in her young life, and my father had considered being a priest. When my dad got a job at Edgewood Arsenal straight out of his military service, and we moved to Harford County. I grew up in Greenridge, right off of 543. And that was a brand new neighborhood at that time, filled with almost exclusively young families, with seemingly little ethnic diversity. no racial diversity, and very little religious diversity at all. As married Catholics, there was no question on how my parents would be raising their children. Once moving to the area, our family quickly settled in as parishioners at St. Margaret's Church. And once we were old enough, my two brothers and I were headed to St. Margaret's Elementary School. At least a half a dozen young families living in Greenridge within a block or two of us were families attending St. Margaret's. So as far as I knew, everyone in my world was Catholic. My first significant memory of being Catholic was preparing for my first Holy Communion in 2nd grade. My family used to get Charles chips delivered to our house in the big tin cans, as all our neighborhood did. My brother Paul, who was a year older than me, would search the can for the perfect potato chip that was the size and shape of a communion wafer. He'd be the priest, and I was the earnest 7-year-old trying not to mess up my lines, which included the word amen. But the timing of getting out that word and opening your mouth to receive the host was something I really wanted to feel confident about because things could go wrong. In upper grade school, both of my brothers became altar boys, just like my dad was when he was in school. We followed in our parents' footsteps, attending church every Sunday morning, whether it was for folk mass or traditional, getting donuts afterwards at the Bel Air Bakery, eating fish on Fridays during Lent, and getting new clothes at Easter. During elementary school, I would say that my relationship with God was the same as that of many young children of any religious denomination. You knew you were supposed to love God, but you also knew that you should have some fear of God as well. Fear as to what would happen if you did not obey God. That sense of fear was also very much a part of my experience with the sisters and lay teachers in my Catholic grade school experience. You respected them because you were a little afraid of them, and that was encouraged. Losing recess time or physical punishment because you disobeyed Sister Marie Antoinette was absolutely acceptable, and your parents were going to be supportive of any punishment that the sisters dished out to you. After getting through public school for grades 6 through 8 and seeing what was going on for some kids my age that didn't have much of a family unit or didn't have any spiritual community, I was thrilled and relieved to return to a Catholic curriculum for high school at John Carroll. By that time, my parents still identified as Catholic, but seldom went to church. In grades 9 through 12, I really enjoyed the religious services at school, but my relationship to God felt deepest when I joined the school chorus. Most specifically, when that group performed the Alleluia chorus from Handel's Messiah during each year's Christmas concert. We were probably 60 or more teenagers singing that magnificent piece in all its voice parts. I can't begin to describe to you the practice, the patience, and the power of that music and what it had for me. For the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. From childhood to adolescence, now back in community, my relationship with God had shifted over those 4 years of high school from one of respect due to fear to one of respect due to awe. The music, the friendships, and my religious studies brought me back to the God of strength, who was all-powerful. It felt like God was with me and was on my side. I wish that that feeling of connection had followed me to college and beyond, but it didn't. After my time away at a good Jesuit university, I found myself judging the Catholic Church instead of wanting to be a part of it. I wasn't myself because I didn't have a spiritual life. Like the primary character in one of my favorite books growing up, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume, I started looking for a religious place to fit. The local Catholic Church was comforting in its familiarity, but it didn't feel like home. I went to religious services at a Methodist church with my longtime boyfriend, but the Methodists weren't right for me, and really neither was he. I became close friends with a young woman who was in a Pentecostal church, and I agreed to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. I was half curious and half terrified that someone would start speaking in tongues during the ceremony, as the bride told me that that might happen if someone was overwhelmed by the Holy Spirit. It didn't happen, and what I felt about that was relief. When I was 23, I finally got to know my first Jewish person, and it turned out that he was my husband. He didn't know it then, and of course, neither did I. The thing I admired the most about him when we first started dating was the breadth of his knowledge in all things Jewish. The holidays, the Sabbath, Jewish history, his deep understanding of the customs and the traditions, the Hebrew, the Yiddish. He knew so much, and yet he seemed almost always still curious to know more. I was smitten with him and with a religion that encouraged this kind of behavior. Study, learn, question. Strengthen your mind, open your heart. That's what it started to feel like for me. I decided I wanted to convert. My study with Rabbi Block, who was here at the time, was a delight. He gave me a reading list, including all the Harry Kemmelman books. Friday, the rabbi slept late. Saturday, the rabbi went hungry. Sunday, the rabbi stayed home. And then we went on to Isaac Bashevis Singer and his short stories, along with his incomparable novel, In My Father's Court. And my husband joined me in reading and in discussions, and it brought us closer. Rabbi Block and I had many conversations about all things Jewish. And after a year, we did a brief prayer together in front of the open ark, and I became a member of the tribe. He told me not to stop reading and learning, and to go live my Jewish life. And my husband has been my patient partner in that endeavor ever since. Thank you. So now I know a lot of Jews. Now, I even gave birth to a couple, and I've nurtured at least 3 through their own Jewish life. I have extended Jewish family who are Orthodox and some who are conservative, and I have Jewish friends who are atheists. And as Reformed Jews, we seem to be all okay with all of that. And when it comes to my relationship with God at this time in my life, I'm still a work in progress, of course. I've been standing with you at Yom Kippur for 36 years now, and I still want every opportunity to get this right. I'm guessing that you do too. In a recent Torah study group with the rabbi, we were talking about the way we think about God, each of us, or the way that we hear God. Sometimes God is our rock, our constant, our source of strength. Sometimes we cry out for God as a desperate last chance to intervene before disaster. And sometimes God is just a quiet voice inside of you. And for you atheist Jews who are just here for the cultural Jewish experience, thank you for hanging in here so far for this part. But sometimes I like to think that feeling God's presence is about timing. I was really nervous about speaking about all of this today, about where I came from religiously and how I got here. It's all so personal, and I thought I might be judged. And then last Sunday, I decided to come to the memorial service for the victims in Israel on October 7th. As we transitioned from the sanctuary to the foyer for a beautiful candle lighting ceremony, I wound up standing near someone who was obviously a guest who was there with her husband. When the ceremony was done, I introduced myself to them as I wanted to welcome them, the stranger to our community. It's not in my nature to do that. I'm actually really very introverted, and I often just want to come in and say my prayers and leave, but I didn't. And after I'd introduced myself, I asked where they were from and why they were in the community that day. And the woman said to me, "We are Catholic, and we just wanted to come here to support you today. We are holding you all in our prayers." I really felt like that was a really full circle moment for me. There was my Catholic life from my past supporting my Jewish life in my present. On the way home in the car, I felt really emotional and said, "Baruch Hashem, thank you, God, for timing." My Catholic life was a good life, but it wasn't the right one for me. My Jewish life was completely unexpected and has brought me more love for my husband, for my family, for my friends like family, and for my community than I ever thought that I could experience. I don't feel fear of God anymore. I feel in awe that I landed here. And I feel so, so grateful. This Yom Kippur, I pray that God is with the Jewish people and with me. And what I know for certain is that God is reflected in each of you, in your kindness, in your support, and your acceptance of me, the ger, the stranger, no longer the stranger. And I also often have to add that Shalom is my favorite piece of liturgical music of all time, and the way that the choir and Mike sing it, it is my sanctuary. So thank you for listening, and may you each have an easy fast, and may 5785 fill you with blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Some questions?
Thank you, Anne, for sharing that. You had me in tears. But everyone knows I always cry here. That was really such a great story. I felt like I lived that through you. But your journey is the gift you gave all the students that you have taught. And both of my children had the benefit of being your students. And you meant a lot to them through their education, and you have a very special place in their hearts. And, I think when you talk to people, is there God? How do you know there's God? And I think your journey is evidence of God to me and what you brought to this synagogue and to my children and many children along the way. So thank you for today, and thank you for everything.
I like to tell people I've been through 7th grade 7 times. 5 years with my 7th grade students and once with each of these kids. And as Pat would probably agree, we always learned more from our students, I think, and their experiences than we could ever have hoped for as Jews by choice. Yes, Nina Cogan.
To the extent that you're comfortable, can you talk about how your parents embraced Noah and I and your conversion?
So my conversion was really difficult for my family. And it was kind of a question of, we thought we knew who you were, Anne. And now you're telling us that you're someone different. And so we don't know who you are anymore. And that sounds kind of dramatic, but it is, they are steadfast in their love and support of me, no matter what. And as time grew on, and my mother understood who a Jewish person was and got to know Brad, and as the children came, and they saw that Judaism had a framework that they could understand and that they could support, I am happy to tell you that they were at many simchas and did not miss a trick, and they are very supportive and proud grandparents, just as much as Noah and Nina's Jewish grandparents would be.
Anybody else? Go.
Anne, I just want to let you know, you inspire me. You just really do. So I don't even know if this is a question. It isn't. It's just a statement. that you really do, and you always have. And when I was new to Temple, and I was scared and nervous and sitting way in the back, and obviously before I converted, you gave a drosh, and it inspired me and spoke to me, and I won't say it as eloquently as you, but it was something about all of the Jews at Mount Sinai, the foot of Mount Sinai, but not just the natural-born Jews, but the converts, their spirits before that time, during that time, and after that time. And you just paused, and you said, that brings me so much joy to think that so long before I was even a concept, that I was there. I was embracing Judaism. And that spoke to me so much that evening, that Shabbat, and it is a part of my journey here. I think on that and contemplate on that. I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for today. It's beautiful. All the speakers, thank you.
Anybody else? Last chance.
I think we need to know Anne's favorite color.
Today, my favorite color is white.
Thanks, Ann. So I just want to thank the three of these amazing people. I'm happy with who I had here for you today, and I look forward to this tradition continuing next year. It's just a delightful time to have with each one of these to let the congregation know more about them. I wanted to do it myself. That's why I was so happy to be in this role. Thank you, Mike, for great tech. And you guys are free to roam. 4:30, we're back here, right? 4:30 for services. Have a wonderful afternoon. If you need to, remember, hydrate. We don't want martyrs in the house, so